name is Tim Trainer. I'm Chief of the Geography Division at the U.S. Census Bureau. I'm responsible for managing an address list for the nation and providing geographic support for all of our censuses and surveys that we conduct at the Census Bureau. We do about 100 different censuses and surveys over time. And so the Geography Division provides all the geographic support to help collect the data, to help tabulate the data, and then to help disseminate the data to a variety of users, and including the public. Part of the work that we do at the Census Bureau, we maintain an address list, as I mentioned earlier, and we also maintain a network of roads, because that allows us to geocode those addresses to a particular location. That's important to us because when we collect data about households or about individuals, we need to tie that to a particular housing unit on the ground or a particular business on the ground. And so that's important as we tabulate data and make that available. In addition to that, we manage a whole network of different boundaries. And those boundaries may be legal boundaries, for example, that all local governments have that are legislated that talk about the limits of their particular area. We also delineate, based on criteria we develop, statistical areas. So that also serves as a unit for which we collect and offer data. And then there are a variety of administrative areas, things like zip codes or things like assignment areas that we use to actually manage our census, or even things like school districts that generally are not legal in nature, but they're certainly administrative and serve a valuable purpose. As we go through censuses, and censuses are our major, the decennial census, every 10 years, that's our major activity. And as you can imagine, that takes a phenomenal effort. We hire hundreds of thousands of temporary workers to conduct that work. And it's an exciting period, but it's also very challenging, and you have to plan for it, you have to build up for it. And on the geospatial side, we have to be sure that we have the most accurate geospatial information, both addresses and the road network and those boundaries, in order to conduct that work. In fiscal year 11, the Congress of the United States passed an initiative that's going to help us advance that work and do it on a more frequent basis. And the reason for that is a number of reasons. One is that if you recall, in the 2010 census, you no longer had the opportunity to fill out a long questionnaire. You only filled out a short questionnaire. And in the past, a small segment of the population got that long form. The problem with that approach was that data became old and antiquated too soon. So it stood the test of time for over a 10-year period, and it just wasn't very helpful for planning for the future. So we have been conducting something called the American Community Survey, which is a national household level survey that we conduct each year, and that gives us very current data for socio-demographic characteristics. And it's very helpful for planning and programmatic purposes, and it is used to actually allocate approximately $400 billion of funds to local communities each year. So in order for us to support that activity, it means we have to have a current address list each year, and we have to have current road networks and current boundaries as we go forward. So this initiative is helping us assure that we collect that information and that we maintain it and then use it as part of this geospatial fabric and geospatial network. The way in which we're going to conduct this is through partnerships with all different levels of government, federal, state, local government, as well as tribal governments. And we will be embarking with them on acquiring their very valuable and very authoritative data so that we can use that to promote the programs that ultimately are going to help them at the end of the day with data that are important for their communities. So we have conducted over this last year a series of research projects that help us maintain that address list and help us get that road network, that framework, as well as the boundary network. And so those research activities are helping us improve our overall process, improve our overall data quality. We will be focusing a great deal of attention on improving overall data quality. And now we're at a stage in this development process where we're beginning to implement. So just to give you an example, we conducted an address summit back in September of 2011. We invited 44 different governments to come in and tell us about their expertise in managing addresses. And out of that summit, we identified 5 different pilots, and we're right now in the middle of those pilots, the summer of 2012. We will finish that pilot work in September, at the end of the fiscal year, and then we'll have reports out at the same time by the end of the calendar year. The pilots do different things. Some of them are about how we can have the best partnership interaction with governments, how we can partner with other partners like the U.S. Postal Service, who is a major contributor to the work that we do. We have one that deals with how we can get the best information about who manages addresses. So, for example, traditionally we deal with local planning organizations and so forth, but we may need to be talking to the tax assessor's office because they may have the most accurate address list for a given community, things of that nature. We have one that deals with standards, so again, that helps us on the quality of the data side. And then we have one on what we're calling hidden and hard to capture units. And these are units that you and I might know of as basement apartments or attic apartments or garage apartments. And we need to learn more about where they exist and how they exist and what those conditions are, and can we model that to know where we might find that information. So we've got these pilots working, and they'll inform us about how we move our projects forward. Beginning next fiscal year, we'll start, and this is October now, we're talking about in 2012, we'll start to engage a few select communities, ones that are challenges for us in terms of how good our data is or how bad our data is at the moment, others that where we do have really good data, and so we'll look at the results of that. We'll do that on a small basis or a limited basis because there are 40,000 governments in the United States. So that's a lot of partners to partner with. And then once we have a good sense for how that's going, we'll do a fuller implementation after the beginning of the new calendar year. And then we'll continue this process between now and 2015. And at that time, our goal is to inform ourselves enough to make a decision about whether we can, in preparation for the 2020 census, do something that we call a targeted address canvassing as opposed to a full address canvassing. Full address canvassing in the 2010 census meant that we sent about 140,000 temporary workers. We gave them a handheld computer, and we had them walk every street in the United States to check our address list. If we can maintain a really good address list and do this on a yearly basis with local governments and build that working relationship, can we reach a point that for a good part of the country and a high percentage of the population, we don't have to canvass in 2019? And that would save the government, and it would be a cost avoidance benefit of not having to expend those monies, and then we can just target those areas where we know we either are not comfortable with the address list or we know we are going to have challenges, and go out and do the field work for just those areas. So we're setting up processes and control processes and developing quality standards and doing a whole host of things that are going to help us to inform that decision. And then beyond 2015, we'll carry that work on right up until the time where we start our field work for the next census.